All right. All right, I have 5:03 on my side, so I think we can go ahead and get started. I know it's nice out. I don't want to keep everybody on here when the day is so beautiful. So we'll go around and give an introduction of ourselves. I think most of us know each other, but if we have any announcements to share with the group, now would be a good time to share those as well. So I'll start. I'm Jackie Worster. I live in the Hilliard and River Road area near River Road Elementary School, and I don't have any announcements other than what's on our agenda for tonight. Why don't we go over? I have Jan. I have you on my screen next. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, there we go. I'm Jan Spencer, lived in River Road for 20 years, and I live on Benjamin, and that's just a few blocks from where Horn Lane intersects with River Road. I live on the west side of River Road.
Awesome. Up next, Ed, you're next on my screen.
I'm Ed Farron. I live in the Bethel neighborhood. And I'm on the Bethel Board of Directors and on the Eugene Springfield CERT steering committee.
Awesome. Fred, you're up next.
Yeah, I live across the street from Charles C. You probably have met her before. We live on the east side of River Road, south of the sewage treatment plant on Norman Avenue. I've lived here about 40 years.
Awesome. Some long timers. Andrew, you're next.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Worster. Live over on Jane Street by River Road Elementary, and I think we've been in the River Road area for coming up on 7 years.
Yes. Matt, you're up next. Oh, you're muted, Matt. Hey, Matt, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay. Matt, KJ7CNL. Oh, ham radio guy, of course, over here on Maxwell Road. Very interested in emergency communications. I can currently do 2-meter packet and just barely getting into Aridin, the Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network. That's me.
Awesome. Thank you. Mary, you're up next for sharing who we are, general area of where we live, and if you have any announcements for us. Oh, you are muted, Mary.
There. Hi. My name is Mary, and I live on Norman Avenue, and I've been there about 12 years, I guess now, something like that.
Awesome. Welcome. And Tim, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Tim Felker. I'm in North Santa Clara. I'm the vice chair of the Santa Clara Community Organization. And we have a budding preparedness group. And so I thought I'd sit in on your group, see how things are organized and how you guys are doing. So
Awesome.
Looks great so far.
Welcome. Very cool. All right, I think that's everybody that I caught. So next up on the agenda, we have a show and or tell for the group. I thought this would be a fun item to add to our monthly meetings where if anybody wants to share something that they've done recently to prepare their home or family or vehicle even. And I did receive a photo. I think it came from you, Fred, if that's something that you're interested in talking about today.
Sure.
Okay, I will share my screen and share that. Will you tell us what that is?
I put together a storage bin with items from my truck. A small fire extinguisher, gloves, tarp, booster cables, some toilet paper, a basic toolkit of wrenches and screwdrivers, an emergency flag first aid kit, a solar powered flashlight, and duct tape and electrical tape. Lots of good stuff to have on hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you had to use any of this yet?
The tarp I've used quite a bit. Like if I have to get out and put my tire chains on in the winter, it's better than kneeling in the slush.
That's a good idea. I didn't even think about what you had to kneel on. I see you have cash in there too. That's important.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a good idea.
just in case I have to run in a hurry. The big question is, if we had to evacuate, which way do we go?
That is the question. I think that is going to depend on what the emergency is and where the emergency is at, for sure. As far as I know, there aren't any set evacuation plans that have really been shared ahead of time with the city or with the residents of the city. I don't know if they shared evacuation routes with people in the wildfires that just happened in this past fall, if they told people which direction to go or if they had to figure that out on their own. Does anybody know that information?
They were kind of directing people to certain safe centers. You know, most of them were all going to the Thurston area up until the time that the fires reached Thurston. But I don't know if there's any kind of mass communication about that or if heading west was just the easiest. But they were directing a lot of people to the Thurston area.
The city has an emergency operations plan that they fairly recently produced, and I haven't finished reading. I haven't read it yet, but I think it may have evacuation routes in it, but it may be that the neighborhoods would be able to just make their own emergency plans based on their locations and what risks they have, and establish it like that would be part of a neighborhood emergency plan for evacuation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that neighborhood emergency plan is definitely something that we want to start working on for our neighborhood. Some of the other neighborhoods have already started that that effort so we have a template that we can start from, but that effort is really just getting underway. There hasn't been a lot of work done on that, but that is one of our goals of the team for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, Fred. This is exciting to see what people are up to. I do have one to share as well. I wanted to share some water bricks that we have gotten for our water storage here. Instead of storing the big 5-gallon containers, we got these things called water bricks, and they are relatively small. They hold about 3.5 gallons of water, and they stack really nicely, and they fit in places that those 5-gallon containers don't usually fit, which I did take a picture of where we have them stored, but I'll share here. See this one. So we have them in our garage right now next to our sink, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, there's almost 8 of them stacked there, and they take up less space than like 3 of those 5-gallon containers. So those have been really nice. We keep one in the car as well for just extra drinking water or emergency water. If you have to put out a small fire that you find, or just backup water in case you get stranded. But those have been really nice to fit into our space and in our timing. So thought I would share that with you guys.
Those are nice.
Yeah, they're really convenient. And when we purchased them, a lot of people were using them like behind their couches, or like maybe even as a coffee table with some sort of wood top. You can store them pretty much anywhere you want under your bed. They do make ones for dry storage as well. They're just green instead of blue. They're the same container, but they do make ones for dry goods like pasta or ammo or money or whatever you're into.
Yeah, we've got a couple of I think they're 5-gallon containers we got from eWeb a few years ago. And I found out, yeah, their shape makes them difficult to stash somewhere. And when they're full, they are hard to move. So you got to kind of give them a spot of their own, and then hope you can get to that spot when you need the water.
Right, or move it to where you need it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you
Yeah,
get
one of
those?
the nice things about We got them online. I think it's just like waterbrick.com or something that I think Overstock also carries them.
I did see them on Amazon
Um,
as well, but we can send out the links where we got them.
You just rotate those every few months?
Yeah, so like every like 3 to 6 months, I typically rotate them. You know, I myself am not usually concerned too much about the water after like 6 months. So usually I just rotate them out about every 6 months. I don't treat it or anything.
Those have been good. All right. Does anybody else have anything they want to show and tell for us? It's okay if not. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, could I do a screen share? That's a really good idea.
Yeah. Do you have the green share screen button?
Yeah. First, I need to go up to here. Yeah, I'm getting the stuff all kind of, okay, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this is something that I haven't been very familiar with. I'm not a real literate on solar electricity, but I'm interested in that. I don't have any solar panels, but a friend recently tipped me off to a Craigslist item that he saw for sale, and he is a solar professional. He installs systems, and Newt told me, if you don't buy it, I will. So I ended up buying this. What it is a glorified battery, an inverter that you can feed, you can take out of it at the same time. So what I've done is a little bit of experimenting on my own. What's the performance of a battery system like this? It's way more than a battery, but I found that this battery right here will run this floor fan on low for 15 hours just on a charge. And then I also learned that this fan on low draws about 44 watts, which is kind of good information to have. And then when the panel here, it's a small panel, it's all 5 years old. This is not the latest stuff, but it's pretty good stuff. This would cost you the better part of $2,000 to buy all this stuff new. But this panel maybe should put out more, but in the sunshine, it puts out about 100 watts. So that means when this is in the good sunshine, it can run the fan. It could run 2 fans like this. And that provides a little bit of an idea of what a panel like this could do when it's oriented properly, you know, into the sun. And this is really important information. You know, we've all seen a house with all kinds of panels up on the roof. Well, what does that do? Well, some people know that stuff. I didn't know so much, but this is really interesting. And I'm kind of surprised I didn't have something like this before, because this could run some lights for some time if the power goes off. But of course you need to recharge it too. This is not a miracle, but wow. There have been times I could have used something like this when we had a snowstorm or something. And then I just want to make a quick look at this picture here. We mentioned water storage. This is a 1,600 gallon tank right here. I catch rainwater off my roof. And then I have another tank that's about like this. And then I have a 3,000 gallon tank. So I've got 6,500 gallons of rainwater storage. And probably most of us are familiar with a Berkey gravity ceramic water filter. Does everybody know what a Berkey is?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yes.
Well, that just ought to be in every home. So with a Berkey, this can clean this water up to drink easy, real easy. So, and then of course this is a passive solar space. But anyway, the solar is really educational. I think a lot of people don't really know what a solar system can do. And totally entry level right here. This is like the basic stuff, but this is should be a strong consideration for anybody, you know, for an emergency. The battery's heavy. It even has its own little kind of like wheels. You don't want to be carrying this thing around, but if you don't have to carry it around, it's a real educational and could be very useful to have at home in conditions that I think all of us have been in at one point or another. So anyway, that's my show and tell.
Cool.
Awesome. Do you have the name of what that unit is called, Jan, that you could share with us?
It
Looks like
is,
Goal Zero.
let's see, so ideal, let's see.
Goal Zero is the
Yeah,
brand.
it's Goal
Goal
Zero.
Zero.
It's Goal Zero. And I don't know about stuff, but my friend who does said this is a very good brand. It's like 5 years old. There's newer stuff, but this is they make really good stuff. And of course there's batteries that are better than this, and of course they're newer. But this cost me $400 right here, and I'm glad to have it. And I also found out that I could run my stereo, which is a cassette. It's an old, you know, it's an old type of music system, but you know, with like 10 or 12-inch woofers. And this would run it for like about 12 or 14 hours. So if the power's off, at least I can listen to some music if I can't find anything better to do.
Right.
So, but educational, very educational.
That's great. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, Jan. Okay.
I have a shelter in place and a bug out bag I can share briefly.
Yeah, if that's something you want to share with us.
We actually set this up in December of 2019. So there's two 2-week boxes, so about a month's worth of food and a variety of things, eating utensils, and you see we've got gloves, plenty of water. Never mind that date, that's an old picture. But I have 2 of these 30-gallon food grade drums, and they're in different places on the property. This is the garage, and I have another one in an outbuilding. And this is a bug out bag that essentially will let one person sleep and eat and bug out for however many days you can carry food along with you. Basically, it's a hammock sleeping system. So it's all kind of self-contained in about a half-size backpacking backpack. So this has been great, and it happened just before the pandemic. Then we had the fires, so we did dip into these bins a little bit during that time because we couldn't really get out, and so it was nice that we had them for sure. I can think of just listening to you guys talk. I can think of a bunch of things to add. You know, I don't really have any cash in there. I do have a 160-watt folding solar panel, which is basically 2 almost full-size solar panels with hinges that fit in a case. And we use that for our trailer for camping. And so it keeps the batteries charged. We spend a week in that trailer without any power at all, just using that double solar panel to keep the batteries charged. And we did really well. Couldn't run air conditioning, that we didn't really want to, but having something like that and an RV type battery or a couple of batteries connected together with a solar panel at home, I could easily just pull that out at home and put it in the sunny spot of the yard and keep batteries charged and use the trailer as a secondary kind of shelter. So, okay.
Yeah, that's a really cool picture and a good reminder of the type of food that we could be storing. I think our emergency food is mostly like those packets of actual meals, like camping meals. I don't think we have any like good stuff in there so that's probably something we need to add to our list, some comfort.
Well, we
food.
went with kind of cheap stuff, and we have, my wife has indexed it all with dates and what it is. And so, you know, some of the drinks and things and some of the stuff that might expire, you know, we swap out over time, and we have gone through them and replaced some of the stuff. So that's the thing with what you have is good because it really lasts a long time. And some of those meals are pretty good. The freeze dried stuff, Mountain House, and the
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Cool. So yeah, in an effort to kind of make our meetings a little more consistent, I think this is a segment that we could include in all of our meetings going forward. So if there's something that you'd like to share with the group or that you've done between now and our next meeting, I think everybody would love to hear what you're working on, and it always sparks ideas for everybody else's preparedness. So we'll keep that segment in. Cool. All right, up next on the agenda, we have Ed, if Ed is ready to present to us on sheltering in place.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'm using, well, so I used to live in Northeast Oregon and Milton Freewater, and that was downwind of the Umatilla Army Depot. And at the Umatilla Army Depot was a storage place for weapons during World War II and into the Cold War and up until recently. And one of the things they stored was nerve gas, and they had like tens of thousands of gallons. They had like tons of nerve gas, and some of it was packed in bombs and munitions, missiles, and all that kind of stuff, and some of it was just like bulk, you know. And so, as part of a disarmament treaty, the Umatilla Army Depot and other Army depots in the country were destroying the nerve gas stockpiles. And so they built a huge incinerator. And so you can see this place when you go along I-84 between near kind of before Hermiston, but in that area. And so they built a huge incinerator, and they're just gonna chuck in the poisonous gas, you know, and burn it up, and it'd be gone. And so as part of the project, they gave everybody an emergency radio that you would just plug in, and it would just sit on your table. And if there was ever a nerve gas release that was not burned up and it was drifting towards one of the towns, they would alert the people in that town using those emergency radios.
Oh, yeah.
What's that? And so then they just told us how to shelter in place, and so there was never any gas releases, and so everybody was fine, you know. It didn't work out. We didn't ever need to do this, but the shelter in place was part of the plan. And the deal is like, and so that's kind of an extreme example of a risk from shelter in place, but it's also, you might also want to do it like here in, you know, in Eugene and Bethel, and there's the J.H. Baxter wood treatment plant, which has a lot of very toxic carcinogenic chemicals and just plain old toxic chemicals, which are, you know, thousands of gallons of that stuff that's on site that, you know, I don't really know how explosive it is, but it's certainly flammable. And if that ever started burning, you know, then that would be volatilized and would be in the air. And so, and then the railroad yard, you know, like every toxic chemical known to humanity goes through that railroad yard between Bethel and River Road. So that's, and, you know, occasionally trains wreck and, you know, catch on fire and stuff. So that's another risk. So anyway, and so it's not maybe the biggest risk, but it's certainly a risk to worry about and to be prepared for. So any questions about that introduction deal? Okay. And then so like,
I had a question.
yeah.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I've been involved with ARCO for a long time, and it must have been 10 or 12 or 14 years ago. Baxter was a big issue for us because you could smell Baxter, you know. I'm sure you could in Bethel too, but I haven't known that to be an issue in recent years. Are they even still there? But that was something that was a big issue, you know, for ARCO 10 or 12, 14 years ago. Baxter, you know, in their releases, you know, of very annoying types of gas.
Yes, that's true, and they are still there, although they're a shadow of their former selves. I was actually a chemist for Baxter and started when they had 9 plants on the West Coast, and I was responsible for some research and development and environmental health and safety, and some of the mitigation and remediation stuff that happened. Now I could tell you all kinds of good and not so good stories about it. What you smelled there, Jan, back in the day was mostly creosote. So
Yeah.
that was related to railroad. So it's railroad ties.
Yeah.
It's very smelly. And it smells mostly naphthalines, which is like mothballs. So yeah, it carries a long way and smells really strong. And they do have some very toxic materials that, as Ed said, if they caught on fire or some of those tanks ruptured, the tanks are all pretty much contained in large concrete containment systems, so the fluid wouldn't flow down the road. But if it caught on fire, there would be some serious fumes there. Another thing they did have, which would cause a shelter-in-place event, was a large tank of anhydrous ammonia. So that's like liquefied ammonia gas. So that will take your breath away if you ever opened a bottle of ammonia and took a sniff. Now I'm not sure, this was 25 years ago when I worked, when I left, and I'd worked there for a decade or more. So I'm not sure if they're still using that. But a lot of the treatments they're using today are much less toxic than they used to be. And that's been a good course of events for wood preserving in general. I helped do the research to bring some of those more environmentally friendly treatments to the US, in particular to treat Douglas fir, which has a special character that needs things handled properly. But anyway, I just threw that out there because I'd spent a lot of time with those folks, and they spent millions of dollars on both mitigation and remediation. We did a whole groundwater treatment system, biological treatment of groundwater that had some organics in it, that had a small plume that kind of dipped into the neighborhood. And so that was an issue, and that was a big thing that's went ongoing for years to do that bioremediation of that groundwater. So I mean, they're not without their sense of being responsible, but it's millions and millions of dollars to do that stuff. So they probably could have been a little more responsible way back when.
Well, it may be
Anyway,
they were
that's fine.
responsible because enough people complained about it.
Yeah, well, they had a whole system where people would complain, and it would get right to us, and they would do what they could to kind of mitigate that. But when they open those big retorts, those hot fumes come out and they go where the wind's going to go. And so they tended to try to do it in times where people weren't really gonna smell it as much, maybe. So really early in the morning before people would get up, or later at night. And they weren't trying to fool anybody. They were just trying to make it less noxious for people who were very sensitive to those types of things. So.
Well, it's interesting to hear y'all. Let me just say that so here in the Bethel neighborhood, J.H. Baxter is in our neighborhood, and
Yeah.
it's down in South Park, and people. So they recently, just like a month or two ago, were fined by the DEQ and the fine was for the last 5 years. They have been dumping. They've been, I think, just when they open the retorts, they haven't been completely emptying the retorts. And I may have this wrong, but they haven't been completely emptying the retorts. And so when they open them up, then it volatilizes a lot of these gases, a lot of these fumes, and it just goes. And so that was against their permit for how they treated their waste materials. And so the DEQ fined them for doing this for the last 5 years.
Yeah, why did it take them so long to find them for that? Because even when I was there, we had an NPDES permit. So the feds and the state and everybody was regulating. We had rules to follow, and the plant always kind of tried to take shortcuts and make cut the rules as much as they could to move product through there. And so it was a kind of a constant battle, but everybody knew what we're up against and knew what the rules were. So if they broke those rules according to their permit, they deserved to be fined. I'm really surprised it took them 5 years, though. I think I read that they did get fined, and I don't remember the details either. I just glanced past it because that was like ancient history for me. But yeah, I mean, they deserve what they get, but at points, there was some vilification. I don't want to be an apologist for them, but they were vilified a lot when they really kind of went out of their way at points with the groundwater thing. I did a stint too, door to door to people and to make sure, are you using well water? If you are, we're going to pay to hook you to city water. We hooked up dozens of people to city water who were, not really in that much danger because really low levels, but you certainly didn't want to be drinking that out of your well. So we hooked them up, and we had a well monitoring system out in the neighborhoods where we would go, monthly in the beginning, and actually sample all the groundwater in the wells out in the neighborhood, wells that we installed ourselves for that purpose. And so but that stink is pretty is pretty stinky. I worked there for years and I kind of got used to it, but I'd say it wasn't terribly directly hazardous to your health. It was really more of a nuisance than anything else, and that's a problem. Nuisance is a problem. It's a thing. So people needed to complain, and we did our best to try to deal with those complaints.
Well, so as part of the Bethel neighborhood, the state DEQ and the Lane Air Pollution Authority and the Oregon Department of Health are working with the people in the Bethel neighborhood, and we've been meeting monthly for about 4 months. And I think the plan is to just let them have it with both barrels, and somehow they're trying to mold the community into supporting their efforts, I guess. But anyway, it's ongoing,
and they should go for it. I mean, if there's evidence of ongoing violation of their current permits, because there were permits and they were very specific, in the day that I was there. So, go for it, because if they let them get away with it, they'll just continue to do it because it's very expensive to follow some of the rules of those permits. And, regular plant, blue collar people really oftentimes don't get it. They should be trained better, and we did our best to do. We had great training programs, but I don't know what they're doing today. And like I say, it's changed a lot. I think that the Baxter family still owns the Eugene plant, but they've slowly sold off they had 9 plants when I started, and so they slowly sold those. They were all over the West. And
just as a quick comment, Eugene has, or at least it used to have, one of the most progressive toxics right to know laws in the country, right here in Eugene.
I was a member of the Toxics Board.
Citizen,
I also worked for Lane Regional Air Pollution Authority.
Yeah, for a Hyundai, but I don't know what's current with that. But anyway, just an item, Toxics Right to Know, Eugene, and Ed, if you were involved with that, that's kind of a tangent, but it's a pretty interesting topic.
Yeah, that has come up, but it's so far it's kind of just a planning stage, a planning effort at this point. But what my question is, so the fine is like $240,000 for 5 years of releases, and I suspect they made more money just releasing that stuff, and then their fine is, they made more money than it's going to cost. The fine is going to cost them over the 5-year period.
The magic hand of the marketplace.
That's often the case that happens, and definitely people should look at the history of the events there, or the failures of the permit rules, and compare those to what the state DEQ has for rules. And El Rapa, El Rapa is a very different animal. Still the only, everything else is run by Oregon DEQ. El Rapa is just the local lane air pollution authority. And so they don't really have a lot of clout in terms of applying fines and things to folks, but they can certainly be an advocate with the DEQ to, address some of the issues of industrial pollution. For Hyundai, I was kind of involved in that too, and their big problem that related to shelter in place was hydrogen fluoride, which is, oh my God, HF, look that up. And if you see a cloud of that coming down your street, you better run. There's no sheltering in place, really. Yeah, nasty stuff that they had, and they had a lot of it too. And so I knew the guy that was responsible for developing some of those rules and some of the protections from those releases, and writing the program, the written rules that they had to follow for everything. So it was quite extensive, but still kind of scary for sure. I'm not too unhappy that Hyundai is gone from there.
Well, Tim, would you send me your email through the chat, and I'll keep you advised on what's going on?
Sure, I'd love to. I used to live on Jacobs Drive, and so that's Bethel area, and so yeah, I would be interested in see what's happening there, and maybe even get involved. I mean, I do know history, but I'm not sure I want to be an expert witness or anything. But I am a chemist, or I was at the time. So I mean, I know a lot about what happened and what goes on in the wood treating industry. So anyway,
that'd be great. Yeah, I'd appreciate it.
I'll send you an email, sure.
Okay. And so let's see. Okay, back to shelter in place. Okay, so I'm using my source is ready.gov, and it's just, which is a government website, federal website, and shelter in place, just search for shelter in place. And so what they say is, just, in your house, think about, you want to have a room that's, that doesn't have an outside window or door. If you can find a space like that. In my house, the space I have picked out is a hallway, which doesn't have any outside windows or doors. But if you do have if you don't have that kind of situation, then just try to find a room that with the least number of windows and doors, and then you want to, I think you want to, just my thought, you want to probably have access to a bathroom, and then it's like chances, if you have like if there's an industrial fire or a train wreck or something, you might not get an official warning, immediately. It's a lot of times it takes time to figure out that something's going on. It takes the authorities time, but if you're in your house, and you smell something really awful, or you see, like firebrands falling, or if you see a cloud coming towards you, there's lots of possibilities, but usually a shelter in place emergency is like unusual. It doesn't happen very often, and so if you see purple smoke rolling towards your house, then you think, oh, maybe I'll go inside and shelter in place. And you can also shelter in place in a car, but it's better to be in a house, because cars aren't as airtight as a house. And then, but if you're in a car, you want to pull off the road and just try to get in some shade if it's sunny or something. But and then close your outside vents and windows. So back to your house, you want to. And usually shelter in place events don't last a whole long time, 24 hours probably max. and usually less than that. But you know, anyway, it's good to be prepared, very prepared, and the idea of having your go kit. You know, so just so you want to grab some food supplies, some drinking water, and then I guess the main thing is like if you have a window or a door to the outside, is duct tape and plastic. And you just like Bi-Mart, everyday Bi-Mart stuff, and you use put the plastic strips, cut plastic strips and put them around the edge of your door or your window, and then duct tape it on. And you can probably just use duct tape, and then and then just stay there, hunker down with your family and stay there until you think it's safe. And if you have a radio, some kind of radio, or if you're set up with emergency alerts from the county on your phone, then you'll probably have information about sheltering in place, and then you'll probably get an all clear at some point. Or if you're probably electricity and water and everything's going to still be working, so you'll be able to even use your computer to find out what's going on. You with me so far?
I remember learning a long time ago that plastic was not an oxygen barrier in terms of chemicals. So would the plastic just be basically to keep the bulk of stuff out, hoping, like you say, for a short-term situation? That there are a great many chemicals that will pass through the sheets of plastic. So yeah. This is just mostly to kind of keep the air pressure from moving stuff into the house then. Hopefully.
It's kind of like, the best thing to do would be like in a solid steel tank that's buried 50 feet underground.
Yeah. Who lives in that?
Right. And so, yeah, so it's doing the best you can.
Okay.
And then in some ways it's like you're doing something to help yourself, rather than you're kind of focusing on doing this task rather than having a panic attack sort of. And then let's see, so let's see. Oh, and then and then think about just think of if you have a bathroom, you want to probably try to close the bathroom. If you got a vent fan, you want to close that or tape around that fan, just to keep anything from coming in. And like a fireplace, you want to close the damper and wall off the fireplace or the wood stove, any openings to the outside, you want to close them off. And then especially you want to do this in your space, in your shelter in place room. You want to close off all the main thing is to get in there quickly and close it off quickly and then stay there. And the rest of your house, you may get, I've never had to do it, but you may be supposed to, vacuum as soon as you get out of your shelter in place room and vacuum the whole house or something. I don't know, it depends on the chemical involved. And hopefully the authorities will be telling you that.
And maybe at least have some water in your space, if not some bit of emergency supplies in case it lasts longer than expected.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then in my, like as I was saying, my space is just a hall, and so no bathroom. So I've got another Bi-Mart item. Pluggable loo, which is a portable toilet. And the double duty bags to put in it. But yeah, I mean, just, think about it. Think about if you ever have to do it, what you would want to do, the equipment you'd want to get. So that's basically, any questions?
I was just thinking it would probably be good to turn off any AC systems or heating systems that you have on, right? So it's not pulling in air from the outside.
Definitely. I should have mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think anything that will move air, should be considered. And really, it's a lot of work to tape stuff up. I've been through some scenario tests before, trying to shelter in place. So get to a place that doesn't have that many openings if you can, because it's a lot of work to do it and undo it. And so,
right. The ready.gov recommends that you try, once you decide that to prepare for this, is you cut the plastic in advance, and just have a kit or something with the plastic already cut, and that would be kind of then of course you'd have to label it so know which is the top of the door and which is the bottom of the door and all that stuff. But that would be if I lived right next to J.H. Baxter, I'd probably do that, I guess.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what we did during the wildfires because of the smoke. We just stayed indoors, didn't open anything, didn't use the vent over the stove top, didn't use the bathroom vents.
Yeah.
For those of us with pets, this would be really an amazing consideration.
Right. There's pet tranquilizers are available, right?
Knock them out and bring them in with you.
Well, I don't know. Knock them out would be the right.
Oh, God.
It
Let's
sure-
just hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah, like I say, we already spend a lot of time training our pets to coax them into their carriers as it is, just for regular, vet trips and stuff. You're running around in a panic. I tell you, a cat never cooperates.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Any other questions?
No, you've given me a whole new set of things to worry about now.
I have a little show and tell. So when the wildfires came through us, I happened to have one of these mask shells, the mask part, and they take a bunch of different cartridges, and you can see this one's been used. It's awful brown. But what it is this. Can you read that?
No.
No.
No. What does it say?
It says organic vapor acid gas cartridge P100 filter, which is a pretty common one. And so if the company that makes this mask is MSA, and it's a safety company, and the cartridges, they're probably easier to find now than they used to be during the fires, because everyone was just snatching them up. But the reason I bring it up is because I remembered I had those. If you're getting ready to shelter in place and you have one of these, you can put that on and not have to, rush around. And if stuff is at your front door, then at least you'll be temporarily protected and not easily overwhelmed while you're trying to seal things up. So.
Would you read the label again? I didn't get it all.
The label says organic vapor acid gas cartridge P100 filter. And I don't know if you can see the picture there.
What does the mask say?
The mask just says MSA on it.
Does it have the two little cartridges on the side?
Yeah, those are P100s too. These are a little different than these, but it's the same P100 organic vapor. And that's what you want. There's all kinds of different cartridges. So you want something that'll handle toxic gases and organic vapors, like Baxter fumes, right? So, maybe it's a little overkill for the wildfires, but it worked really, really well. So,
Does it work for tear gas?
oh, I'm sure it would. Yeah.
And does it have eye?
No, it's not a full face. It's just.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a next brand. So.
Cool. And where do you get those?
Look online for MSA is a great brand. 3M makes masks. So just look for industrial safety equipment, face masks, and you'll find all the different types there are. And if anybody's interested, they can contact me further. And
Cool.
hopefully we won't need them, but they did come in handy during that smoke and ash, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all I've got on this topic.
Thank you.
Awesome, Ed. Thank you. You've given us all lots to think about, that's for sure.
Okay.
All right. So checking on our agenda, the last item that we have on here is the ARCO general membership presentation. So our team has been asked to share some updates about what we've been working on, kind of what we're up to the River Road Community Organization general membership meeting. And that meeting is May 10th at 7 p.m. So this coming up Monday. I have started to put together a slide deck of some information that we've been working on, and I wanted to share that with you all today, and then ask if there is anybody who's interested in speaking at this meeting to give any updates on what we've been working on or something specific that you'd like to see in the presentation. So I will share and show you what we have so far. All right, so our goal here with this presentation is to give an update of what we're up to, but also to attract new members to this team. The more people that we can bring to these meetings and the more tips that we can share with each other, the more events that we can organize together, the better our neighborhood will be prepared. So our goal is to really attract as many people to these informational meetings as we can. So our slides as they are now, we talk about what is an emergency, any wildfire, earthquake, floods, power outages, injuries, pandemics, and other emergencies. They can occur at any time and pose an immediate risk to health, life, property, or the environment. And planning ahead helps us increase our confidence to protect ourselves and our families. We are letting everybody know that you are the help until help arrives. So during an emergency, first responders may not be able to assist our neighborhood right away. So you and your neighbors may become your own first responders. We have lots of bridges leading to our town. So there's a good possibility that people may not be able to get to our neighborhood right away. I have a slide in here for who are we. We are neighbors of all skill levels that are gathering monthly via Zoom to share information, organize resources, and plan events. And I grabbed a screenshot from one of our meetings a while back when Tom was presenting on flammability of your house and wildfire season. So to give some people an idea of what we might be talking about. These next three slides here are kind of talking about just goals that we have in general. So up first, community engagement, inviting our neighbors to come and share information with us about personal and family preparedness, inviting experts on different topics to come and share facts and best practices, learning how we can affordably gather necessary supplies. We'd like to host some workshops on topics like food and water storage and producing your own needs at home. Share the Map Your Neighborhood program. And I actually have this one listed on all three of these next slides because that is going to be a very important topic. And then we like to be able to organize and share training programs like first aid, CERT, ham radio, etc. One of our other big goals is neighborhood emergency planning. So identifying neighborhood threats and then creating mitigation plans for those items, hosting emergency simulation practice events, again, sharing the Map Your Neighborhood program, and then also creating a section on the ARCO website of information and resources for our neighbors to be able to access some local information and information about our team. And then our last big goal is developing community partnerships, collaborating with other city and neighborhood organizations, and again, sharing that Map Your Neighborhood program. That Map Your Neighborhood program really ties into a lot of what we're doing and what we want to encourage all of our neighbors to get involved in. With the community partnerships, Charles E. has created this awesome chart that details, let me see if I can make this a little bigger too. And if anybody has questions, feel free to stop or feedback on anything, tell me to stop. So this preparedness partners chart that Charles E. has put together with input from a variety of other organizations starts out with Lane County Emergency Management. We also have our Eugene Springfield CERT teams listed under here. The Eugene Office of Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement, which are Neighborhood Leadership Council, Eugene Wildfire Preparedness Coalition, and the Eugene Neighborhoods Preparedness Network. Those all roll up there. And then over on the right-hand side in this orangish peachy color here, we have the different neighborhood organizations that have emergency planning efforts going on. So this little star indicates where we are. And really the purpose of this chart is to just help us figure out how do we all fit into the emergency planning that's going on. There are state level planning, there's city level planning, county level planning, but we really need to be organizing from a neighborhood perspective because those higher level plans may not incorporate details for us. We also have some other city and county resources listed like Eugene Springfield Fire, Lane County Fire Authority, and the police departments. And then other River Road neighborhood resources like radio communications, local businesses, nonprofits. Yep, absolutely, Matt. Any questions so far before I keep going? Items that anybody wants to share?
Has anyone on the team done the Map Your Neighborhood program?
Yes, we're in the process on Norman Avenue. There are several of us here from that area that have started that effort. I also have been told in this last week that the pastor at the Lutheran Church, about a mile from us on Norman, that church is on Maxwell, that he has done a Map Your Neighborhood effort there. But one of the things we don't have knowledge of is other efforts that may be going on. And it's kind of overwhelming to think of the size of the River Road area and what we would need to ideally be prepared for a very extensive emergency. I consider this to be so foundational. So that's why I think the way Jackie has framed this presentation to build up to a request for more members, more people to step up is really essential.
Could I say something?
Yeah.
In CERT, you know, the Community Emergency Response Team, at the steering committee, we talked about Map Your Neighborhood a little bit the last fall, but we pretty much decided not to do anything till the pandemic's pretty wrapped up, because part of the map, I mean, you can kind of see, because part of the Map Your Neighborhood program is to try to get people into like a house and you know, get like 10 or 15 people together to talk about the neighborhood. And so we don't, you know, I personally don't feel safe doing that, and most people are trying to avoid that kind of contact with people. But probably by next fall, I think we're thinking anyway, CERT is thinking about, you know, re-looking at that at Map Your Neighborhood to maybe start doing it in neighborhoods.
Right. I'd like to respond to that because I was aware that CERT had put out that caution, and I understand why it would be irresponsible to have ignored social distancing and masking. In our neighborhood, the way it's set up and also the fact that we often see each other out taking walks and so on, it's been very easy the way we've approached it, which is not deliberate. This has just been more happenstance where people seeing each other and have struck up conversations and mentioned the Map Your Neighborhood effort. So what we have done so far is really just to get a roster of people who say, yes, I would like to be a part of that, and you can use my contact information. So we've done that, and we have not met collectively inside a house. I would encourage people to do that initial, get the word out, get the buzz going. If possible, start a roster, because to start it in the fall is a lot of time that you could be starting to have conversations with Zoom or other opportunities like this meeting. So I would hope people would get started and just be responsible about how you're going to do it.
And speaking of Map Your Neighborhood, that we do go into a little more detail on the next slides here. So these are the steps of what Map Your Neighborhood will get you. You'll learn the 9 steps to take immediately following a disaster, identify the skills and equipment each neighbor has, create a neighborhood map, identifying locations of natural gas and propane tanks. You would create a contact list that identifies anybody with specific needs who might be home alone. And then you're going to work together as a team to evaluate your neighborhood during the first hour following a disaster. So that's kind of an overview of the general Map Your Neighborhood program. And then Charlesy has kind of submitted the chart that the Norman Avenue team has been working on. Charlesy, do you want to share any more about this?
Yeah, I forgot this was coming up. Right. Well, our little street is set up pretty ideally. It's pretty compacted. In the materials I've read, they recommend finding 15 to 20 households. We actually started with this cluster, this kind of natural cluster of 21 houses. Not everybody in this whose homes are shown here have been talked to yet, because we haven't run into each other at the right time. But Fred, who's also on this call, offered that, and he would be number 15, house number 15 in the middle with a little yellow highlight, that we could use his driveway as a emergency meeting place. So we've already established that. And then if for some reason that didn't work out, my house, which is directly across, could be used for that purpose. It felt like we got something going when we made that bit of a agreement, and informally. It wasn't a democratic vote of everybody, but it was sort of like, okay, let's get started with this assumption right now. And then we have added people again as we've run into them. Mary, who is on this call, lives in this cul-de-sac. Hope I'm not revealing secrets here, but throughout, even when the pandemic was going on, many of us would periodically go down into the cul-de-sac, staying 6 feet apart, and we would socialize. And it was out of doors, and we felt very safe doing that. And that might be a way of getting started with a meeting, or just sharing information with your neighbors, that I think even with the pandemic can work. At least to be notifying people that they don't have to worry, they're not alone in this if something bad happens again. And I think that has caused a good feeling among the people that have spoken up. So I encourage people to get started in safe ways. And that's about all I need to say. Is there someone on here who is part of this group or whatever that wants to add anything?
Covered it pretty good. I think that, like you mentioned, the catching sight of each other, walking by, the informal get-togethers, I think is an important way for people to get to know each other, to visually recognize your neighbors and understand,
Mhm.
you know, who it is that's normally moving through your neighborhood and things like that. And I think that makes a good base for an emergency when people are quite nervous or upset, and you know it can be difficult to think logically, but to be able to recognize faces of your neighbors, I think is a basis for all of this.
Yes.
And I like Charlie says, I would encourage everyone to walk around your neighborhood and say hi to folks out in their driveways or their front yards and chit chat and stuff, and just let them know that you're a neighbor, and that builds communication and trust, and without people feeling put upon, or you know, now I have to answer for anything in particular, and that's just it's actually a very strong foundation.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a jump start in getting to know things about some of my neighbors that I wouldn't otherwise not know. I found out that one of my neighbors used to be an EMT, and boy, I felt better knowing that. There's a lot of skill sets among the people that have just connected, even though that's only 11 of us, 11 households so far. Our goal is 21 out of 21.
That's a really, really good points you made, Mary, and they might transition Jan into your points. I know you had mentioned Map Your Neighborhood as a really good foundation for just a neighborhood watch type group in general. It really builds that connection of, I know my neighbors and I know what they're up to. I know where they need help or they know where I need help. But Jan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that we're really missing a huge constituency right here. This is all good, but this is really kind of lopsided, in my opinion. The slideshow is kind of lopsided. It's a lot of prep stuff, which is, it's good. There's good stuff and it could be made a whole lot better. And there's different ways to go about making a whole lot better. The slides that I presented that aren't here anymore, that had to do with food production, with rainwater storage, with solar, with front yard gardens, with these kinds of a different approach to resilience. There are a lot of people in River Road who are food production oriented, and there's nothing here that even mentions anything about people having gardens, about food storage, in terms of, you know, you can buy the stuff in a package, and that's good too. I'm not putting that down, but there's other types of food storage that would appeal to more organically minded people. But I would just ask, how much time is this slideshow going to take, and how much time did ARCO allow for this presentation? Because if there's any difference in that, I want to use that, and I'll put on my own slideshow. You know, I'll go to the board and ask if I can put on 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever's available to cover this other stuff, because it's a glaring absence of this other material.
Yeah, Jen, good question. So those slides, I wanted this presentation to focus on what the team is actively working on and what we are currently have in flight. You know, we mentioned in these kind of goal slides back here, and I'm certainly open to, you know, I'm open for feedback on this if we want to adjust the wording here on any of these. But the slides that you had in here, they were definitely valuable. I just didn't think they really fit into what our team is currently actively working on. But I think Claire did reach out to you about having you present your own set of slides in this meeting. I think the email just came through right before this started, so maybe you haven't seen that yet. But no, I definitely agree with you. Those are very good points and very good aspects that we should be focusing on. But our team hasn't really done anything in that space right now. So we didn't
All
really.
the more reason to be, you can't do everything all at the same time, that's
Right.
for sure. Well, I am going to see about doing maybe something between this and the gardening section of that program, because it's a good link. It's a really good link. But I would really urge this group to widen, you know, the vision of what goes into resilience. And it's a big story. You know, there's lots of ways to make our lives more resilient. Another one that I probably wouldn't even get into because it gets kind of political is just our own overconsumption of resources. But, you know, maybe that story another time. That's not a popular one because that's the way we live. But if there's time that is available for that ARCO meeting, I'm definitely going to see about, because what I have to offer is a great in between this and the gardening part, you know, however that sequence goes. So, but I would sure like to see that this preparedness group embrace a little bit of a broader vision of what resilience is and what preparedness is.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm Jan, I'm so completely in agreement with you that it needs to include all of that. This is a snapshot of where we are right now as a very young committee. And I don't, my street, for instance, there are lots of people who are doing serious gardening and so on. And I'm sure would be and are very open to what your priorities are. I don't want to think that our committee is excluding it at all, but at this juncture with the amount of time we have for this, I mean, we could, I don't know what more to say. I mean, we can certainly emphasize that sustainability and resilience in the form of energy and food production and better use of resources is a priority. But I don't know how far we can get into it in this particular.
Well, I would suggest to mention that kind of stuff in your list of stuff. You know, there's not enough time to cover everything, but I think even given this slideshow, it could manifest a broader vision that would take 30 seconds longer, you know.
Okay, 30, yeah, that probably would.
I mean, I want more time than that myself. I'm going to talk with, you know, whoever I need to talk with about getting some airtime. But even some of these lists that are there could be expanded and even just mentioned, you know, that some people go, oh, yeah, that's neat. You know, I mean, it's all good stuff, but I would be more thinking ahead into the future of what this group could accomplish, rather than focusing on what we've already done, or this is good, but it's really limited.
Well, you know, yeah, we don't see that the same way, that's for sure, because it is limited, and it's apparently limited to just one street right now. If there are other map your neighborhood efforts, we need to
find. Just talking about map your neighborhood, the whole thing here. The whole.
Yeah, well, that's why you're part of the committees, to help remind us to be broader, I guess. That's
so
good.
Jan, if there's specific language that you would like to see included in these lists here that we can add, I'm certainly open to adding those. The slides that were there before just weren't really flowing with this presentation, or if you want to include them outside.
That's a little bit different, and I would be very glad if I can have a little bit of time on a separate item from this, but we can link them, you know. But I will definitely take a look at these and suggest some, even just like 3 or 4 items on these lists, you know.
And Jerry, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I have a couple things. Number one, HAM, the HAM, only the H is capitalized. It's not a acronym.
Thank
and
you.
Second of all, I would like to see, you mentioned that we're doing the training.
I have that. That's the next slide.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No worries. Yeah. So I couldn't get the actual flyer to fit on the slide. So I took the language off of the flyer and just put it onto the slide in here. So I have emergency communications field day, join your neighbors to practice both FRS and ham radio use during a simulated emergency. And then these bullets came from the flyer. We have the location, the time, and the registration link. So my question was going to be, if I know, Jerry, I think you're going to be on vacation, but if Matt, you or Jerry are able to come and speak to this event on Monday, May 10th, is that something you guys are open to coming and talking about?
Maybe Matt can, but I won't be here that day.
What time?
The meeting is at 7 p.m.
Can't do it.
You can't make that. Okay.
The other thing, that link is wrong. If you
Wait a minute, 7 p.m. you said?
Yeah, p.m.
Might make that after all.
Okay. I can send you guys I can send you an email request with the specific time.
Yes, please.
Jackie, the link is wrong. It's simply nwemcomm.eventbrite.com.
So I did see that, and it redirects to this link. So
Yeah,
if I-
but that's fine, but that's, people are gonna want to know the simpler one,
okay, I can come back and update that.
if you understand what I mean.
Yep.
People see that and they go, ooh, too much.
Yep, I can put the shorter one in there. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, we definitely want to mention that event and talk that up. Have you guys seen if any registrations have come through for that event yet?
I checked yesterday, but I'm busy. I'm leaving first thing in the morning, so I haven't had a lot of time. But we had 7 people sign up
Yay.
last night.
That's awesome. Yeah, it went out in the River Road Community Organization newsletter, and I have Kate's email, and we also have Tim here as well to share that with the Santa Clara organization to get that in their newsletter or their
They did.
advertising. Oh, they did.
Yeah, I
Perfect.
saw it in the Santa Clara, they have their website and they have their listings, and I got it yesterday in their Santa Clara, neighborhood community organization.
Perfect. And I know it's been shared in at least 2 of the Facebook groups that I'm in, and I do plan to keep sharing that in different groups. I'm in quite a few emergency groups on Facebook, so I'm going to keep sharing that up until the event to keep awareness on it. So hopefully we keep getting people. Awesome. All right, and then the last 2 slides that I have in here, just we need you to join us in increasing our personal and community preparedness. All levels of emergency preparedness knowledge are welcome. You never know what knowledge other people have, whether they have some specific skills that they don't think are valuable, but we want to encourage everybody to come and at least listen to what's going on. And then we have our contact information, and we'll pause for any questions. So that's what we have at this time. Are there, other than the resilience items that we talked through already, are there items that anybody feels are missing in the presentation? Anything you'd like to see different?
I would just like to say that I'm hoping personally that there's something of a dialogue that can take place in that meeting, and people will actually ask questions, or that we could ask questions of the group that show up, like, are you aware of any efforts to any organized efforts or starting efforts that are going on in the River Road area, such as Map Your Neighborhood? It's an opportunity to try to get some feedback as to what's going on in our community, because frankly, I'm not aware of too much that is going on. And I'm hoping that's not the case, but I'd love for them to start feeding that information to us so that we can network. So I'd like to see a chunk of time at the end where that was possible to have that dialogue, not that it's just a PowerPoint presentation and then it's over. But
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm pretty sure we're going to have time for questions. I'm just getting to the meeting agenda. that Claire sent me. She said we have from 7:15 to 8 p.m. Emergency Preparedness Committee report and presentation. So we have 45 minutes on the schedule right now.
Wow.
So I don't know that we're going to go that long, you know, depending on how discussion goes, but this presentation is only going to be, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's, I didn't realize we were going to have up to that amount of time. That's
Yeah,
a
that
lot.
is a lot. So yeah, there will be plenty of time for Q&A and discussion on those items. Do you want to see a slide in here that asks those questions? Do you know of any macro neighborhood efforts?
Right. I had messaged you some questions.
You did,
and
that's right.
We might be good to put on a slide just to jar people's thoughts on things they might be aware of. I mean, I found out about that pastor at the Lutheran Church kind of by word of mouth. It would be so nice to know some other efforts that we might reach out and even do some, you know, communicating and sharing of ideas and best practices and so on, and get some momentum and enthusiasm going here.
Yeah.
For that.
Cool, I can get that added.
More members to our committee.
Yes, more members means more people speaking in these meetings,
Right.
which we want to encourage, yes.
Yeah. Well, and then subcommittees of the committee.
Yeah, more people here means more events that we're able to plan and coordinate together. So that's exciting.
And I think it was always envisioned that one of those subcommittees would be the stuff that Jan is talking about. I thought that Risha and Jan had volunteered to actually lead that charge within the umbrella of this committee. So,
yep.
Or I don't know, lead, but I mean that was an interest.
Yeah. Be involved in it for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, I will make a couple adjustments to the slides. I am going to send out this slide deck to the email list with the meeting notes so that everybody can take a look. If you do have any feedback that you want to send in, please do send that in. We'll be presenting on May 10th. And if there's anybody that would like to speak to any of these slides, we would love to have more people present in that meeting. So if you're feeling interested, let me know. But that is our, yeah.
I just wanted to thank you for doing that, because this is really, I mean, the need for this committee is so important. And the general meeting is our primary vehicle right now for reaching out. There are other efforts going on to network with people in the community that are concerned about emergency preparedness. There isn't the time today to go into more detail, and I would just like us to grow those opportunities. The list at the bottom of the chart that Jackie shared with us that show schools, churches, social clubs, on and on and on. We really want to have a network there of tie-ins of people that we know are our partners and our allies in this effort. That's going to take a lot of time and effort, and maybe there is another vision, but I think we're going to be chewing on this for quite some time.
Yeah, Jan?
Yeah, I would like to kind of underline what Charles just said. It's something that I think probably a good number of us in ARCO have thought of at one time or another, but ARCO has probably about as much stuff going on right now as I've seen since I've been involved, and it's really encouraging. But one thing I'd like to see ARCO do is have a mobile ARCO display of literature. We can hand out displays of what different committees are doing, and actually ask some of the faith communities, maybe the schools, maybe North Eugene High School, different entities in the community, if, say, when church is out at the Lutheran Church at 12 o'clock, ARCO could have a table in their fellowship hall with just information, you know, about the community organization and all the different kind of issues that we're interested in. So, and do that for the other whatever locations we have here on River Road, and have a couple ARCO people there to answer questions, and just let people in the community, in the neighborhood, know that this stuff is going on, because I bet it would be an awesome way to recruit people, and it would be an awesome way, of course, to educate, about preparedness, about resilience, about the Greenway, about human rights. So there's just lots of issues. So I think the outreach is just essential, and it's fun too. We had the ARCO table there at the Mims Garden, a week and a half ago, and that was a lot of fun. It's just so much fun to meet the public.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I know we're at time here, so I don't want to keep anybody too long on this nice day. I want to give one more plug. If you are interested in sharing on a topic or presenting on something like Ed did tonight, we would love to add you to the agenda. So please let me know if there's something you want to share with the group. But otherwise, I will send out meeting notes, and we will all talk again soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.